Breaking news. Putin is ready to destroy the West, as Russia fires supersonic rockets at 2,300 miles per hour. Nikolai Patrushev, who is in charge of security for Vladimir Putin, said that the ruler is ready to destroy the West if anyone tries to stop the war in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin says he is ready to use nuclear weapons to destroy the West, and Russia tested new hypersonic missiles today, his top security advisor said. Nikolai Patrushev, who is 71 years old, said that if the West tries to beat and break up Russia, the Russian president will strike the West. Some people think that Putin's stupid war in Ukraine was planned by Patrushev. Russia's defense ministry said that it fired fast anti-ship missiles into the Sea of Japan today as a scary test of its weapons. Two P-270 Mosquet missiles, which can go as fast as 2,300 miles per hour, were fired, but Japan said no damage had been recorded. A message on Telegram said, missile ships of the Pacific Fleet fired Mosquet cruise missiles at a fake enemy sea target in the Sea of Japan. The target, which was about 100 kilometers away, was hit directly by two Mosquet cruise missiles. In an interview with the Kremlin's newspaper Rossiyskaya Gazeta, Patrushev said, some people in the West are already talking about revenge that would lead to a military victory over Russia. He didn't care that Putin invaded Ukraine violently and threatened a full-scale world war. Instead, he said, Russia is patient, and its military strength doesn't scare anyone. However, it has unique modern weapons that can destroy any enemy, including the US, if its existence is threatened. Among his scary threats, he said that Putin wanted to rule all of Europe. He told the Kremlin's newspaper Rossiyskaya Gazeta that the US does what it wants in Europe, ignoring the fact that Russia has always been the leader on the continent. In the 19th century, Russia was a kingdom, and in the 20th century, it was the Soviet Union. It will be the same in the 21st century, too. Patrushev, who has been secretary of Russia's Security Council for a long time, wants his 45-year-old son Dmitry Patrushev, who is Putin's Minister of Agriculture, to take over as president when Putin steps down. But the former head of the FSB warned, NATO countries are involved in the fighting in Ukraine. They have turned Ukraine into a big military camp. By trying to keep this military conflict going as long as possible, they don't try to hide their main goal, which is to beat Russia on the battlefield and break it up even more. At least since 1945, all times when tensions around the world got worse were caused by the US government's unbridled desire to keep being the most powerful country in the world. He also said that American officials are trapped by their own lies and could launch rocket attacks on Russia because of this. He also said, that's dangerously short-sighted stupidity. Putin's agent also said that the US uses military biological laboratories to create new viruses to kill the people of unwanted countries while once clean American cities are drowning in filth and garbage. He emphasizes how false war crimes accusations are made against Putin and his group while the West turns a blind eye to real acts of genocide and financial machinations carried out with the White House's approval. In his analysis, though, he said that the end of the EU is not far off. He thought that Washington wanted the EU to fail so that Europe couldn't do well. In his wrong way of thinking, sanctions against Putin, like when big pharmaceutical companies cut off the flow of Western medicine to Russia, are like Hitler's gas chambers. It's well known that most of these same companies once helped Nazi Germany make poison gases and other things that kill people's souls, he said. They agreed with the idea that so-called superfluous people should be killed. His rant kept going. Let's not forget that the same Anglo-Saxons helped the Nazis in the 1930s so they could use them against the Soviet Union. Washington and London are once again supporting Nazism and fascists because of the money and power they got from World War II. They don't mind using Ukraine to start a pan-European or even global conflict because they think they can get away with it. His rant seemed to be an attempt to rally Moscow's elite, who are becoming more and more skeptical of Putin and Patrushev's plans. He said, the West has been against our country more than once. Sometimes under the Polish and Swedish flags, other times with Napoleonic eagles, the British flag, or the Hitler swastika. The end result is the same. No matter how hard people try, they can't beat Russia. Putin may go to the opening of a nuclear power plant in Turkey in April. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the president of Turkey, said late Wednesday that Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, might come to Turkey on April 27 to attend the opening of the Akuyu nuclear power plant. In an interview with the news station ATVA Haber, Erdogan said that Putin could either go to Mersin in person or join the event through a call. The project, which is in the province of Mersin in the southeast of Turkey, is the country's first nuclear plant. It is expected to make 35 billion kilowatt-hours, kWh, of energy each year, which is about 10% of the country's electricity needs. It is the first nuclear power plant project in the world to use a build-own-operate approach. According to a deal, Russia's Rosatom firm has agreed to develop, build, maintain, run, and shut down the power plant. Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine last year and its first invasion of its neighbor 8 years earlier are both hard to explain. Russian President Vladimir Putin is trying to convince his people that this war is a matter of life and death, but he isn't getting very far. Russia's existence as a strong, sovereign state isn't tied to its control of Ukraine or even parts of the Donbass or Crimea. Realists have been used by a small group of critics to argue against the West continuing to help Ukraine defend itself. Russia may be waging a war of aggression as a matter of law, but as a matter of history and strategy, it is moving to prevent a grave deterioration in its strategic position, Mario Loyola wrote in The Atlantic. The stakes are almost as existential for it as they are for Ukraine. The borders of Ukraine after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 were set in international law and in many treaties and agreements that Russia signed over and over again. They were not just a formality, as Loyola says, and Russia's first invasion of Ukraine and illegal annexation of Crimea were not justified because Russia felt it had no choice, and couldn't risk losing Sevastopol. Loyola is not the only one to say that Crimea's status should be treated as a special case for Russia because it was given to Ukraine only in 1954 and is still home to few ethnic Ukrainians. However, Crimea is a part of Ukraine. Crimean Tatars were a major part of the peninsula's population for centuries, even after Russia took control at the end of the 18th century, until Stalin moved them to Central Asia during World War II.